Joining me now to talk about Israel and the president's recent decisions to recognize Jerusalem as the capital is Pastor Robert Jeffress of the First Baptist Church of Dallas. Pastor, always great to see you.
Thank you, Greg. Good to be with you.
You know, it was a bold move. It was something no other president had done, not just moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, but recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Of course, it has sparked the very predictable, day of rage, violent clashes by Palestinians. How do evangelicals feel about it?
Evangelicals are ecstatic about this decision. And Greg, I sent the president a note earlier this week and told him he is a modern-day profile in courage for being willing to do what no other U.S. president had the guts to do. And look, devout Jews and Christians celebrate this because we believe the Bible named Jerusalem as capital 3,000 years ago. But, for those who don't believe the Bible, this is the right thing to do. We don't argue with any other country's right to name their own capital. Why shouldn't Israel have the right to name their own capital? This was the right decision, and I told the president he's on the right side of history, and most importantly, he's on the right side of God.
Right. And those who are criticizing the president say, oh, look what you provoked, a day of rage and clashes. And the Palestinians don't need an excuse to launch fairly regular clashes and other provocative acts. I do want to ask you about the president's drop in the polls among evangelicals. It's gone down from 78% to 61%. Why is that?
Well, a couple of things I would mention. First of all, he won the vote by the largest evangelical margin in history. And yes, there may have been a little bit of slippage, but I was with the president today, and he cited another poll that shows that his approval has gone up to the highest point it's been since September. And this Pew poll that you're quoting also didn't take into full account the Jerusalem decision. Even at 61%, that is very, very high, and I believe it will go back up in the coming months ahead.
Let's talk for a moment about morality, because on Capitol Hill, there is a conspicuous absence of it, one could argue, and yet politicians are always claiming the moral high ground. In that context, Al Franken resigned. Do you suspect that this was just a political move by Democrats so they could then seize the moral high ground with respect to people like Roy Moore if elected?
Yes, I think the Democrats had three goals in mind by throwing Franken overboard. They want to, first of all, defeat Roy Moore. Secondly, they want to claim the women's vote in 2018 and take control of the House and Senate. And ultimately, they want to get rid of President Trump. Those are the three goals they have. I don't think they'll be successful in any of them.
The major criticism of all of these accusations against Moore coming out, 4 decades hence, is that, wait a minute, where were these people? Now, It is quite true that women are often afraid to report acts of sexual abuse. So how do you square that?
Well, look, what I believe is, Alabama is the most evangelically populated state in the nation right now. And if evangelicals put Roy Moore into the Senate Tuesday, it's not because they approve of child abuse. It's because they disapprove of Doug Jones' extreme abortion position. They have disrespect for the press, and they dislike the Republican establishment. And that's really what's going on here. Greg, Christians have no tolerance for child abuse whatsoever. But the choice is between Roy Moore, who has these 40-year-old allegations that he vehemently denies, and then you've got Doug Jones, who openly, admittedly embraces the worst kind of child abuse, the murder of children. That's why people are going to vote for Roy Moore, I predict.
Pastor Robert Jeffress, good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg.